Right now, something interesting is happening in the world of personal computing. For decades, Windows has dominated the desktop, shaping the way billions of people interact with their computers. From the familiar Start menu to the taskbar sitting quietly at the bottom of the screen, Windows created a comfort zone that many users have lived in for years. But in 2026, a growing number of people are starting to explore alternatives. Rising system requirements, privacy concerns, subscription models, and the increasing demand for faster, lighter operating systems have pushed many everyday users to look beyond the traditional Windows environment. And that's where Linux comes in. Now, if you've ever heard about Linux before, you probably imagined something complicated, something only programmers or hackers use, something that requires typing mysterious commands into a terminal. That reputation existed for a long time, but the truth today is very different. Modern Linux distributions have evolved dramatically, especially those designed for former Windows users. Developers understand that the biggest barrier to switching isn't performance or software support anymore. It's familiarity. People don't want to relearn how to use a computer. They want something that feels comfortable from the first click. That's why a new generation of Linux distributions has focused on recreating the Windows experience almost perfectly. These systems keep the same layout, the same workflow, and in some cases even the same visual design that Windows users are used to. The taskbar stays where you expect it. The application menu works like the Windows Start menu. File managers behave in ways that feel instantly recognizable. Even right-click menus in system settings are arranged to minimize confusion. For the millions of users thinking about leaving Windows in 2026, these Linux distributions offer a smooth transition. You get the speed, privacy, and stability of Linux without the shock of a completely new interface. And the best part is that most of them run faster than Windows, even on older computers. Imagine turning on your computer and seeing something that looks almost identical to what you've used for years, but it boots faster, updates quietly in the background, and doesn't constantly ask for subscriptions or push advertisements. That's the promise many Linux developers are delivering right now. One of the most popular choices for Windows converts is Linux Mint. This distribution has built a reputation for being one of the easiest Linux systems to use, and it's easy to understand why. The moment you log in, everything feels familiar. There's a Start-style menu in the bottom left corner, a system tray on the right, and a traditional taskbar across the bottom. The layout is almost identical to what millions of Windows 7 and Windows 10 users remember, but the experience goes deeper than just appearance. Linux Mint focuses heavily on stability and usability. Applications launch quickly, the system rarely crashes, and updates are designed to be safe and non-intrusive. Many users who switch to Mint say the biggest surprise is how calm the system feels compared to Windows. There are no sudden restarts in the middle of work and no aggressive upgrade notifications demanding attention. Another major advantage is software management. Instead of hunting for programs across the internet, Mint includes a clean software center where applications can be installed with a single click. Popular tools like browsers, media players, office suites, and creative software are available instantly. For people leaving Windows, this simplicity makes the transition feel natural rather than overwhelming. Another distribution that has gained attention for its Windows-like design is Zorin OS. If Linux Mint feels like a polished classic Windows environment, Zorin OS feels like a modern interpretation of it. The interface is sleek, clean, and designed specifically for people switching from Windows or Mac OS. The developers behind Zorin OS put a huge amount of effort into visual familiarity. The desktop layout closely resembles modern Windows versions, with a taskbar, application menu, a notification area that behave in very predictable ways. But Zorin goes even further by including layout customization tools that let users switch between different desktop styles instantly. That means someone coming from Windows 11 can choose a layout that mirrors that exact experience. Others who prefer an older Windows style can choose a more traditional interface. This flexibility has made Zorin OS incredibly appealing for new Linux users. Instead of forcing people to adapt, the system adapts to them. Performance is another strong point. Zorin runs smoothly on both modern machines and older hardware, making it a great option for people who feel their current computer has become too slow for modern versions of Windows. Then there's a project that takes the idea of Windows familiarity to an entirely new level. Some Linux developers decided not just to imitate the Windows workflow, but to recreate the entire look and feel almost exactly. The result is a distribution called Windows. The first time many people see WindowsFX running, they genuinely believe it is Windows. The icons, the taskbar, the system layout, and even the visual animations are designed to mimic Microsoft's operating system. But underneath that familiar surface is a Linux system that offers all the advantages of open source technology. It's lightweight, customizable, and free from the restrictions that come with proprietary platforms. For users who want the easiest possible transition from Windows to Linux, a system like WindowsFX can feel almost magical. There's virtually no learning curve. Everything looks exactly where you expect it to be. Another fascinating option is Kubuntu, a distribution built on top of Ubuntu, but powered by the KDE Plasma desktop environment. KDE Plasma is famous for its extreme flexibility, and one of the things it does best is recreating the traditional Windows desktop workflow. When configured in its default layout, KDE Plasma feels very similar to Windows. The panel sits at the bottom of the screen. The application launcher functions like a start menu, and open programs appear in a taskbar exactly the way Windows users expect. But KDE goes beyond simple imitation. It offers a level of customization that even Windows itself doesn't provide. Users can move panels, change themes, adjust animations, and transform the entire interface into almost anything they want. For someone transitioning from Windows, this means they can start with a familiar layout and slowly explore new possibilities as they become comfortable with Linux. Another distribution that deserves attention is Linux Lite. As the name suggests, this system focuses on being extremely lightweight while still providing a comfortable desktop experience for Windows users. Linux Lite intentionally keeps its interface simple and traditional. The desktop includes a taskbar, system tray, an application menu that closely resemble older Windows environments. Many users who loved Windows 7 find Linux Lite particularly appealing because it captures that same clean and straightforward design philosophy. What makes Linux Lite special is how well it performs on older hardware. Computers that struggle with modern versions of Windows often feel dramatically faster when running Linux Lite. This has made it a favorite choice for people who want to revive aging laptops and desktops without sacrificing usability. Another surprising entry in the Windows-like Linux world is Deepin. Unlike some other distributions that focus purely on copying Windows layouts, Deepin aims to create a beautiful and polished desktop experience that still feels familiar to Windows users. The Deepin desktop environment features a taskbar-style dock, clean system menus, and intuitive settings panels. The design feels modern and elegant, almost like a blend of Windows and macOS aesthetics. What truly sets Deepin apart is its attention to detail. Animations are smooth, applications are designed with consistent visual styles, and the overall experience feels cohesive in a way that many operating systems struggle to achieve. For Windows users who want something familiar but also visually refreshing, Deepin offers an interesting balance between comfort and innovation. Finally, there is one more distribution that has quietly become a favorite among many Linux enthusiasts who recommend systems to Windows switchers. That distribution is Pop_OS. Although Pop_OS originally focused on productivity and development environments, its recent updates have made it increasingly accessible to everyday users. The desktop layout can easily be configured to resemble a traditional Windows setup with a bottom panel and application launcher. But what makes Pop_OS special is how well it handles performance, hardware compatibility, and system management. The developers behind Pop_OS focused heavily on creating a smooth user experience, ensuring drivers, updates, and software installations work reliably. For someone leaving Windows behind, this reliability can make a huge difference. Now, when you step back and look at these distributions together, something fascinating becomes clear. Linux is no longer just an alternative operating system. It has become an entire ecosystem designed to give users choice. Some distributions prioritize visual similarity to Windows. Others focus on performance, customization, or modern design, but all of them share a common goal: making Linux accessible to everyday computer users. And in 2026, that mission is more important than ever. As more people question the direction of traditional operating systems, Linux offers a refreshing alternative built around freedom, transparency, and community-driven development. The idea that switching to Linux requires technical expertise is becoming increasingly outdated. For many users, the transition is now as simple as installing a new operating system and continuing their work exactly as before. Browsers work the same way. Office applications behave similarly. Media playback, gaming, and even professional creative work are now possible on Linux without major compromises. Of course, there will always be some differences. Linux isn't trying to be a clone of Windows forever. Instead, these Windows-like distributions act as bridges that help users cross into a new computing environment comfortably. Once people become familiar with Linux, many discover features and possibilities that were never available to them before. Customization becomes deeper. System performance improves. Privacy control increases dramatically. And perhaps most importantly, users begin to feel that they truly own their computers again. The next few years will likely determine how large this shift becomes. If Linux distributions continue improving usability, software compatibility, and hardware support, the number of people exploring Linux could grow dramatically. And for the millions of Windows users thinking about leaving in 2026, these 7 Linux distributions provide the perfect starting point. They prove that switching operating systems doesn't have to mean starting from zero. Sometimes, it simply means stepping into a faster, more open version of the environment you already know. In Mani, Wallace, the future of desktop computing might not be about replacing Windows entirely. Instead, it might be about giving people real alternatives that respect their preferences and give them control over their technology. And for the 99% of users who simply want a familiar, reliable, and fast computer experience, Linux has never been more ready.